Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, the Falcons have confirmed what their roster's going to be for the Esports World Cup in a couple of weeks' time, but that does not mean it's the final change they're going to make of this roster mania cycle. Rumour has it, the way they've made this change opens the door for a high-profile SMG to join the team after the Esports World Cup. The player that might be to partner Pred, that may well depend on the results that happen in a couple of weeks' time and how TJ gets on in the lineup as well. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Just to start here, we think the roster lock is now closed. It may be possible for teams to still make changes, and we may see announcements in the coming days, of course, as well, but the last couple of days of chaos, really, on this front, seem to now have pretty much come to a conclusion. We'll see all the results trickle out of that over the coming days. Then we'll see what the reaction of some of the pros are to these new teams they're going to be facing in a couple of weeks' time. And then, after the World Cup, then it's all going to go rather chaotic again, I'd imagine, certainly based on some of the rumours that we have today. Before we get there, some of the teams that are likely to stick anyway are the following. Boston Breach, what a record from them, 1-6 in hardpoint that event. And I know that their numbers here, they did get kind of torched by the OpTic series. If you excluded the OpTic series, their numbers actually look far better. But yeah, Snoopy and his Search and Destroy was kind of like the especially big driving force, I would say, of the weekend, because that was where they were doing their damage, and Snoopy was certainly their player of the weekend in that mode. But Purge, overall, the highest rated card. Yeah, he only had 0.79 in the hardpoint. But what a weekend from Boston, all things considered. And maybe they can go one step further, or maybe they need to think, okay, that's realistically the best that they're going to do with that roster big. And there's no team maybe next year, if they still exist next year. There are other questions. But that Purge Snoopy duo, it'd be nice to see that stay around, let's say, for the near future. This was the Surge roster. They went 5-6 in hardpoint, but 6-4 in Search, and their control was very good. They even beat OpTic in one of them in the grand finals. Neptune was purple in damage per round in Search and Destroy for his role. So, yeah, great weekend from all of these guys. Really fun team to watch. And in terms of prize money over the course of the season, you know, they made a boatload, really. I mean, it was obviously less than OpTic as they won the big one, but I think it was more than any other team made this year was Surge, because Champs is a big deal when it comes to picking up the prize pot. And these are the numbers for OpTic. Now, just to clarify, because I'll do it again, because people are going to say, oh, Huke's underrated, or, you know, Dashy should have been higher and all this. And yeah, you know what? Fair enough. If you were making these cards subjectively, then you would give these guys higher ratings. But, you know, the number is purely based on the stats. And when you've played a World Championship Grand Final, which has been very competitive and has gone 5-3, you know, the numbers aren't necessarily all going to be purple. Shotzzy had a lot of purple in here. People are saying Dashy's numbers are too low with 89, but, you know, it's just based on the numbers. So just to quickly clarify, it ranks all of the players from worst to best at the tournament in every stat category, and then it gives them a number based on where they rank. So kills per 10 minutes, Dashy was 95, which meant he was pretty much the best of all the ARs in that category. 99 would be the best, 50 would be the worst. It then excludes the weakest number of the 3 per game mode, takes the best 2, and then adds those up and divides by 6 across the modes. The only thing that really held Dashy back is that, yeah, his KD in control was good, but his kills per 10 and his ticks per round are actually pretty much bang average of ARs at the tournament. That's kind of what held him back from being a real, you know, 90+ rated the tournament. At the end of the day, who really cares? He got the ring. Mercules with a 97 overall, 1.52 in Search and Destroy purple, highest KD for his role in the entire game. And the Search is pretty mega. I mean, we talked about it going into the tournament, how important Search was going to be for the team that eventually won. And OpTic, I mean, look at this. Purple in pretty much all of the numbers here in the Search and Destroy category that mattered between Shotzzy and Mercules. That was a big difference maker. But of course, the hardpoint 6-0. A very dominant tournament run by OpTic at the end of the day. Now, the World Cup is coming up. We're going to have a fair few teams out there as well. Omid cannot have both of their teams. This was a thing last year with FaZe Black. I think it's why they had to play under the Stallions or whatever it was last year, because FaZe already in the tournament, so they couldn't have FaZe Black there as well, despite the fact that they qualified. Understandably, Omid can't have Omid and Omid Brooklyn, so the Omid Brooklyn team, presumably, is going to be loaned or sold to some other representations. That's particularly interesting to see. The main Omid team, I imagine, of Mac, Vivid, Craze, and Mamba will be staying the same, but yeah, the other team could represent an interesting organisation. I know there's been talk about it. Ronnie even said, you know, what if Envy came along and got involved? We know that Hastro's been talking quite a lot about it. He actually put a video up just the other day talking about where Envy currently are, their road back to where they want to be. Not at all ruling out Hastro the possibility of coming back into the Call of Duty League. That is certainly on the agenda for Envy. Whether it can happen now, whether it makes sense now, whether it makes sense this season, I don't know. But if I'm the league, let's say Boston want to sell, Ravens want to sell. That's been the big rumour going into next season. There's definitely interest out there. There are Saudi orgs that want to come in. There are other orgs that want to come in. The league, I'm not saying they can choose, but to some degree they have veto power here. If Envy want to come back in, given the importance that would potentially have to the scene, it's something to think about. And in the short term, it wouldn't be impossible, I'd imagine, for them to say, okay, we will loan out this team to play at the World Cup. Then again, are that team expected to do much? No, Envy like results. So, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe they're going to go somewhere else. I guess time will tell. Confirmations of yesterday, and some big drama as well with what we're going to discuss in a second. This we've known now for a good few days, and that's Gwyn is a Cloud9 player for the World Cup. So the Ravens situation collapsed, their contracts all came to a conclusion, they are out of there. Gwyn able to join Cloud9 with a 1-for-1 change for Capsidal effectively. So they've still got Sib, they've still got Kremp, they've still got Spart. Gwyn comes in to complete the lineup. An upgrade on paper, you gotta say, although Shotzzy has some thoughts on that. We'll discuss those later on today. And Sib is still there for now. There have, of course, been discussions as to whether Sib could go to Falcons, whether that is part of their medium-term plan. And it may well still very much be, and we'll discuss in a second what the Falcons are cooking up as well. Now, the big drama, unfortunately, for Henry here was Team Orchid yesterday. So, Toronto have made a bit of a mess of the last few months, let's be real. They brought in Mercules because Beans had the visa issue. They let Mercules go because they gave him a bench offer. He went to OpTic, the rest is history there. Now they've dropped Beans, which is interesting because he was certainly not their weakest AR this season, I would say. There's obviously reasons to keep Insight around, but Beans is gone for whatever reason that they have for that. And therefore, where was Beans going to go? We thought it was a possibility he could go to the Ravens, but they're going to get F. instead. Their team's going to be Slasher, F. Cobra, and Afro. That's the current room of the Ravens. Then it was, okay, could Beans go to Falcons maybe? That's not happening. But Beans is obviously a really good player, and certainly when you've got a tournament with 16 teams, for them being amateur teams, Beans is certainly going to want to be there, and Beans has therefore joined the Orchid team. Now, Orchid played at the Challengers World Championship, and they just snuck in to the qualification spots for Riyadh. That was Bance, Harry, Mythics, and Henry. Now, that team, unfortunately for Henry, has decided to make a change, and Beans is coming in instead. So it's really painful, this, and I don't know whether there should be in future some sort of rule that makes it impossible for this to happen, or at least some sort of way for the player that actually qualified to still get their payday, as it were. Because as Henry says, don't even know what to say. If anyone needs one for EWC, let me know, because he's been dropped. And yeah, really unfortunate, right? Because that team did well, they qualified. Even if they turn up there and they come last place, they get paid 20 grand in a team, it's 5 grand each. That's a big deal. So, the idea just to be dropped, as Denza says, this should be illegal, literally robbing someone from at least 5k and an Unreal experience that they qualified for, criminal behaviour. So there's some ideas on what they could maybe do to fix this. At the end of the day, as tough as it is business. The team can qualify, they're allowed to make a one-man change. Beans became available, that's what they've done. It's tough, but it is what it is. The question is maybe whether the World Cup, or there should be some sort of rule in place to either prevent this, or to ensure that, as Louis says, the person dropped should be the team's +1 to attend the event anyway, and the prize money should be split 5 ways. So maybe there's some way that the World Cup could mandate to say, okay, look, if an amateur team, first of all, because they qualified as an amateur team, guys not got an opportunity before, maybe will never happen again as a result of this. You never know what the implications of this could be. The World Cup could say, okay, look, if one of our amateur teams, Challengers teams that qualified through the qualification mechanisms at the World Championship, the Challengers champs, if they decide to make a team change that roster, the 5th man is still going to be, he has to still be part of the roster, and he will come as well, and, we'll split the money 5 ways, even if you don't want to have him as part of your team. You know what I'm saying? That's an option. Ronnie says maybe Challengers teams shouldn't be able to make changes unless a player gets picked up by a pro team, which is another argument as well. That's another way they could potentially do it. Unfortunately, it is what it is, and we get to see Beans play at the World Cup anyway, and that team was 4th at the Challengers Champs. They will feel like they need to improve, right? They will feel, understandably, Bantz's team, that if they turned up with the roster they had, they were probably just going to get dead last. With Beans, it gives them a chance, maybe. So, yeah, would have been very interesting to see how they'd have got on regardless, but intrigued your thoughts in the comments. But let's talk about the Falcons, because TJ has been confirmed as a Falcon for the next month. That may not last too much longer. I know there's been talk about this, right? Because people will say, I thought, Falcons had bread, right? I thought they had cash. Why are they getting Tej? Because Tej was on a free, right? Tej was off the Ravens. His contract was over. Gwyn was leaving. TJ decides to go as well. And it makes a lot of sense. Tej comes in alongside Pred. I mean, not gonna lie, it's a pretty funny story, right? Because TJ had Pred's number for some time, and now they're gonna be teammates. So there's obviously gonna be some funny moments between these two. There's no doubt about that. And as Tej says, excited to get working with these guys with the Esports World Cup coming up in a couple of weeks. So yeah, what about that? TJ under Clayster as the coach of the team. We've got TJ, we've got Pred, Exnid, and then Arcetes rounding out the team. Look, both of the ARs were under serious question. They've decided to get rid of Priester here and keep Arcetes on. There's obviously a question whether that was the right or the wrong idea, but they can only make a one-man move because they're under contract, that's the rules, and therefore that's what they've decided to go on and do. But is TJ a long-term fix, right? Is he a long-term solution? We know that this team, they're trying to win championships, right? They're trying to get to the top. If TJ really proves himself at the World Cup, it could be a fantastic opportunity for him to actually stay on the Falcons on a more medium, longer term basis and maybe give himself a chance to win championships over the coming years. But is that going to happen? Pretty doubtful, I would say, right now, because there are other factors here in play, such as, let's say, other players they might be looking at as well. Because for now, they wanted to make a change. They wanted to improve their roster. TJ was available. They wanted to make a change in the ARs. They went and got Tej. Maybe it gives them a chance. But actually, it seems there's another reason why they are doing this, and that is because Exnid is now on the flex. So Exnid says, welcome Tej, and yes, I'm the flex. So I did wonder what would happen here. I thought maybe TJ would run the flex, and Exnid and Pred would stay as the SMGs. But no, Exnid's going to run the flex instead. I think either way, it shouldn't make too much difference to the success of the team. But there is apparently a very good reason why they are doing it in this way, because as CDC Intel says, consider this a leak if you want, but there's quite a clear reason as to why Exnid will be flexing for the Falcons rather than the short-term option. All signs and current rumours for the BO7 Falcons roster point towards Exnid as the flex and Pred with a new high-profile SMG duo. Now, look, respect to TJ, but I don't think he would be counted right now as a high-profile SMG duo, so I think it's pretty clear that this is what the Falcons are looking to do. There was a big question to me whether they would keep Exnid for the medium term if they want to try and form a roster that they think is capable of winning championships, but they do want to believe in their Saudi prospect. I think Exnid, frankly, has the right mentality, and he's got a fair bit of talent as well. The question really with Exnid is, would other players want to play with him if they want to join a roster that they think is capable of winning? That is a question. But if Falcons say, look, he's our man, and here's the money, then they're going to do it, aren't they? So Pred isn't going anywhere, obviously. He's effectively face of the team. Exnid is the flex, and therefore, after this event, they will probably be looking for two. Unless they make a serious run with Tej, it's pretty likely that they're going to try and upgrade that second SMG alongside Pred, and probably upgrade the AR as well. But Exnid on the flex is very telling, because it tells us exactly what they're planning, and that plan is to partner Pred with somebody else. Now, that somebody else is not gettable right now. The big rumour over the last few days has been around aBeZy, right? The target would be Falcons after the World Cup. They go and get aBeZy from FaZe. They break up the duo. I think Ronnie even talked about it on the Reddit as well, or someone did, that there might be a duo breaking up. Now, that seems pretty compelling. It all depends, though, what happens in a couple of weeks. What if FaZe win the event emphatically, they dominate it, don't lose the map, and they decide, you know what, champs again was another fluke, we're back, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I think aBeZy's gettable, and if there's a team that could get him, it's probably Falcons. But who else counts as a high-profile sub-duo? You're not getting one of the OpTic guys, unless, I don't know, Huke becomes available if OpTic gets Simp. Falcons could get Simp. They could get Envoy. I don't think you're ever getting HyDra. But you know what I'm saying, right? There's maybe some options out there. I think aBeZy is probably the player that makes the most sense here, which is why people are talking about him the most. But as far as high-profile SMG duos go, there are some other options out there after the World Cup as well. So very much interested your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.